I've
Yeah.
actually seen guys. Um, there was a riot, right? There was a riot back at Henry in 1989, September, and it was crazy, man. It was chaos. Officers were getting beat up, inmates were getting beat up. I mean, it was crazy, and they locked a bunch of guys up, transferred them that night, and then they would come around on little hit squads. Like if they didn't like you for something that you said or did 6 months ago, they'd come lock you up, put you in confinement. So they locked a real good friend of mine up. I was working in the kitchen, so I got on the food cart, which was like a portable serving line, and I went back there to see him. And man, there was 28 cells. One cell had 3 people in it that were in jail before the riot. The
Mm-hmm.
rest of the cells had 6 and 7 guys in it. No clothes, no linen, no mattresses. Toilets weren't running. Exhaust fans were turned off. I mean, it was just abject torture. And I went back there, and on the food cart was instant potatoes, hot dogs, and bread. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the cop would make the paper plate. He would take the disposable spoon, stick it in the mashed potatoes, and go like that. Let it go. Whatever stuck to the spoon, you got to keep. One piece of bread, one hot dog. That was a tray. So when I went in there later on that night, I went back. I gave the food cart guy some money to let me do his job. So I went back there that night, and I couldn't get any food. I couldn't find any food to bring back there. So I brought a whole bunch of loaves of bread. I stuck them up under the cart.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, I'm still like only 5'8", you know what I mean? So when I knew the system from going there the first time, so the cops started making the food. Well, when I first rolled in there, I snatched all the bread and put it in the garbage can. And when I went to pick up the trays, I was handing chunks of bread into the bars, telling guys to eat it. You know what I mean? Because they weren't feeding these guys anything.
Yeah.
So when I got to my homeboys' jail cell, I gave them guys a couple loaves of bread. I mean, that's my homeboy in there. And then I
Yeah.
gave everybody else about a half or 3/4 of a loaf. And that was in 1989. In 2002,
89. That's
yeah,
and 1989 I was 3 years old, man, and you're in the damn penitentiary. Hey,
yeah.
I must say, you're aging well, my friend.
Well, thank
You
you.
know?
Prison, it either preserves you or it destroys you. It depends on how you live. Well, anyway,
Exactly.
in '02, in prison in Florida, they have hubs when you transfer.
Uh-huh.
If you're in this region in North Florida, you'll go to Northwest Florida, you go to a hub there from all the other camps, and then you ship out to the hub in North Florida. And then if you're going to a camp there, you'll leave someday during that week, or you end up going to Central Florida or South Florida. So they
Uh-huh.
have these 4 hubs. And I was in transit, and every time I went in transit, I would see guys coming back to prison because that's the reception centers too. And they'd be like, "Damn, kid, what are you back for?" And I'd say, "Man, I'm not back. I never left. You know what I mean? I'm still here." And they're like, "Oh, man, that's crazy," because they've been back 2 or 3 times, and I'm still
Yeah.
locked up. Well, it was like the movie Life, right? In 2002, I was at the Wild Wild West, North Florida, Lake Butler West Unit Transit, and I'm on the rec yard, and these 2 old black guys come up to me, and they say, "Hey, man, you have a little brother in prison?" And I say, "No." "You don't got no little brother that was at Henry?" And I said, "No, man, that was me." And then the one guy says, "Man, I told you." And they said, "Look, man, we were in confinement when you brought that bread back there." Said, "You were the only one that had any heart to do something for us." And I said,
Oh
"Man,"
shit.
I said, "I didn't have the heart." I said, "I was scared to death, but somebody had to do something." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
"That wasn't courage. I was scared. I was trembling, but I just had to do something. I
Yeah.
couldn't just sit back and watch you guys get starved." So yeah, the first
You
time I
know?
saw somebody get killed was at Henry,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't even stop the softball game. When they came out there to get him, they put his ass on the gurney, threw the sheet on him, and rolled him right back on up top. Didn't even stop the softball game. Softball game didn't even call for a hold up or not even a timeout. You know, and uh, I've seen so much of everything. I mean, I could say I guess I've seen it all. If you pick a scenario, I could say, yep, happened at this time, at this place. Um, I mean, I've seen every kind of murder you can imagine. I've seen a couple of oops murders where guys didn't even mean to kill anybody, and in a fight hit somebody in the throat, and nobody knows what's going on. You look from across the yard and you see the guy on the ground, you think he was just knocked out or something, and he's suffocating. Where even if you knew, what could you do? Where are you going to go get something to do a tracheotomy? I'll tell you something I really believe. Every inmate should be taught CPR. Every inmate should be taught CPR.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you never know when you're going to need to help somebody, whether it be another inmate or staff. I mean, what happens if a staff member is choking around a bunch of inmates? Is he going to say, I don't want an inmate to touch me? I mean, he's going to be glad if somebody knows the Heimlich maneuver. He's going to say, thank God somebody taught that inmate how to save me,
Yeah.
you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. And the nurses and stuff, they take forever to get there sometimes, especially during emergencies.
Yeah, they do.
You see a lot of overdoses in there?
Yeah, I saw a lot of overdoses. I saw a lot of stuff. And there's good, there's competent, and there's incompetent in every walk of life, whether it be a CO, a colonel, a nurse, everybody. You have some nurses that are truly dedicated, they want to be there, and you have other nurses that are just there for the paycheck. And when the shit hits the fan, they don't want anything to do with anything. They just bug out. I've seen guys die on the steps of the captain's office. I've seen I mean, I've seen it. I've seen guys killed over a football ticket. I've seen two guys, it's going into Monday night on the football, NFL, and one guy has the Packers and the other guy has the Vikings. And they say, look, you got 3 losses, I got 3 losses, let's split it. And then in the morning, the guy who had the winning team changed his mind. And now there's a problem about that. I mean, I've seen every kind of senseless murder you can imagine. And now you got guys, it used to be like in prison, if you saw a guy hit up, you knew he was a rat.
Yeah,
If you saw a guy with a
type thing,
you knew he was a rat. Nowadays, these guys are giving each other $1.50s for not sharing a cigarette. So what do? You run across a guy and he's got a big scar on his face and you think he's a rat and he just didn't share a cigarette with a guy. So the guy ran by when we stand in line and hit him across the face. I mean, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is wild, man. What do you think would be the worst prison you were in? Henry?
No, even especially back then, even during the worst times, the worst prisons, there was always something going on.
Yeah.
There was always some racket, something to do. And really, the more violent the prisons, the more freedom we had. Because I was at Charlotte Correctional Institution, November 92 to April 94. And the only time you saw officers was during shakedowns. And if there was a fight or anything, they would just wait for it to be over. They didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to have nothing to do with it,
You said Charlotte?
Yeah, Charlotte CI.
Yeah,
it's in Punta Gorda,
about
Florida.
That place.
Yeah, I mean, doors opened at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you better be up at 5 o'clock in the morning too, because it was going down every day. Every day it was going down, and I don't know how. If I would have had less time, I don't know how I would have lived, because actually having the life sentence gave you a bit of a luxury, because you didn't have to worry about too many. When things became serious, you didn't have to worry about ramifications or repercussions as far as discipline went from staff or outside cases, because, I mean, hell, you already had life. What are you worried about?
Yeah.
What?
It's living a lawless life, pretty much.
Yeah. So when it reached that point, it was like, well, the hell with it. If that's how it's going down, that's how it's going down. Let's roll. Let's handle that.
Yeah.
Where another guy would be like, damn, man, I'm going home to my mom, or I got a wife. And I didn't have any of that. I mean, I wasn't going home. So, I mean, it made it where it was less to worry about. When it came time, all you had to do was worry about what was right in front of you. You didn't have to worry about anything else.
Yeah. Was there ever a time in those 31 years where you thought you might, or there was a situation where you said, man, I might have to take this man's life?
Yes, there was a couple of times. And, it comes down to both guys. It can't be just one guy.
Yeah.
It can't be just one guy. When And and also it depends on how you live. If you're a slimy guy, you know what I mean? If you do slimy stuff, you know, there's a way that you're going to be treated by everybody, you know, about everything. And when guys know that you stand up on the right side of things, you know, I mean, look, honestly, there were times that, you know, you hear people talk about minding your own business and stuff like that, you know, and that's true. However, there's also a creed in prison that, you know, you speak for what's right. You know what I'm saying? You speak for what's right when it has to go down. And I mean, I have been, because guys knew that I was always on the yard, that I was always on the scene, so to speak. There have been times when a situation would arise that he said, you know, this guy says a guy did this, and this guy says a guy did that. And when they circle up, you know, they would come and say, hey, kid, you were out here, man. What happened? And what I would tell them is get everybody involved, because I'm not talking behind anybody's back, and I'm not going to say this twice. And I would go stand out there, and most times I was the only white guy, you know, in the whole scenario.
Yeah.
And I would stand there and I would say, this is what happened. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, any one of those times, if I was lying, you know, shit could have went bad. But because I know I'm telling the truth, and they know that I'm not going to go out there and lie. You know, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie for you. I'm not going to lie on you. Don't bring me into something if you think I'm going to cover for you, because I'm not. You know what I'm saying? Because the truth has to be heard, especially when it's serious like that. You know, and sometimes the one telling the truth is the only way that it can be diffused, because nobody wants to live in that kind of chaos and what comes from it. You know, anybody who says they are is, I believe, just acting tough. You know, and like I say, when there was a time that it came down to that, you know, what actually diffused everything was somebody from the peanut gallery yelled to the other guy saying, man, you know, you don't want to be messed up with him anyway, man. You know, you're just trying to save face right now, man. Just go on about your business. And the dude was like, man, I ain't on this shit, and walked away. And if that other guy would have not said that, I mean, there's no telling how it would have ended, because he's standing there, I'm standing there, you know, he's strapped, I'm strapped. He had one knife, I actually had two, you know what I'm saying? And how it went down, the reason that it happened was there was a guy that had a relationship with a woman officer, and he let a friend of his know. So the friend, and this all came out later on, the friend tried to extort the woman. I know you're messing with this guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So she got him locked up. Well, since we all worked in the same place, and, you know, the population, they didn't want to accept that one black guy could get another black guy locked up like that. So the easier target was me. Had to be the white guy.
Oh, shit.
Had to be the white guy. So, you know, they made the mistake. You know, I'm from Dade. I live in South Florida, you know what I mean? But I'm from Dade County. And they made the mistake of standing around some other guys from Dade County who happened to be black and talking about me telling on their homeboy and how they were going to handle that. So now one of my homeboys comes to me and says, hey, man, these motherfuckers are saying this and that. And I said, oh, yeah? And he says, yeah. And I said, man, well, thanks. And he's like, what's up? You want me to stay out here? I said, no, man, I got it. You know, so I positioned myself in a part of the yard where there was just a narrow entrance, and I'm out there waiting. And a couple of the guys come up there, but they can only come in one at a time. So I pull out, you know, and I got one knife in this hand this way and one knife in this hand this way, you know, so I got a little slasher and I got a poker. And I said, what's up? You know, I said, what's up? So now he's like, oh, you got a knife. And I said, yeah, what's up? You know, and now he's standing there. He really doesn't know what to do. And there was an older guy standing there, you know, on the peripheral, and he's just sitting there watching us. And he ended up telling the guy, hey, man, you know you don't want to be messed up with him anyway, man. Just go on about your business. You're just trying to save face right now. So the dude's like, man, I ain't on this shit. And he turned and left. You know, and then you know how it goes. They politic. They get another friend of mine, send them to me. They don't want this. They don't want that. And then it all comes out that it was actually their own associate that told the woman to lock the guy up. Well, now it's all good. Just pat each other on the back. Don't do that no more, homeboy. You know what I mean? But when they thought it was me, then it was a whole nother epic level of confrontation.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it goes.
Hmm.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah, man, it sucks. I've been put in a situation like that before, or I don't know how it turned out, but I know someone used me as an scapegoat for
Sure.
a shank. They threw my name in there, and it was a crazy story. I know a lot of people remember that story,
And
but yeah, people will use, and unfortunately, this is a sad truth, especially over here in these areas, Virginia, Florida.
yeah.
They'll use a white guy quick as a scapegoat,
Oh,
you
sure.
know,
Sure. It
and
happens all the time.
that's just how it is, man.
And but the thing is, the one good thing I would say, when a person is consistent in their character, no matter. I've been to, I mean, like
Exactly.
I was at
Yep.
Henry, Charlotte, Belglade, Sumter, Jefferson, Okeechobee, Taylor, Madison, Charlotte again, Madison again, Washington, you know, and when you're consistent in your character and the way you act, the things that you do, you know, a person will endorse you. A person would say, in your case, for instance, they would say, "No, man, Death ain't on that type of stuff."
Yeah.
No, that's not him. No, you need to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
Because like I say, when guys know you live a certain way, they're gonna respect that. There's a level of respect that comes with being who you are.
Yeah. And
Right.
that comes out here to the streets and the social
Sure.
media world. It's taken me going on 3 years now to build this going on 500,000 subscribers.
Right.
And that's what I want. I want people to see how solid and consistent I am as a person. That
Sure.
way, if someone in anywhere else in YouTube realm wants to make a video saying this, that, and the third, they're gonna step up in the comment section and say, you know what, nah, no, that ain't him.
Yeah.
This, that, third, that ain't him. A lot of stuff when it comes to prison, you can relate to the streets, especially when it comes to some of those little, I guess you could say, mind games. You know what I mean? There's a lot of mind games in prison. Would you say that there's a lot of? Well, let me ask you this, man. When it comes to like, some of those sayings when you go to prison, don't eat the Snickers bar on the pillow, stuff like that.
Right.
Would you say any of those sayings are actually somewhat true?
Well, okay. What I would say is, especially like for guys that are first going to the joint, people will be reluctant to help you if you're reckless. It's like nobody wants to be friends with the guy who's always starting something, who's always in
Yeah.
the middle of something, who's always doing something. And so, if a person puts himself in a position where he's going to have difficulty, the other guys are going to say, "I don't want to be associated with that guy,"
Yeah.
because he's always starting some trouble. The only people who do want to be associated with somebody like that are the people who are trying to come up themselves. I mean, I've seen so much, the push-pull game from back in the days where you got guys, they'll fold up their shirt and put it somewhere in the way. They know it's in the way. They know somebody's going to have to move the shirt. And then, somebody walks up,
the booby
"Hey,
traps.
yeah, hey, whose shirt is this on the bench? Whose shirt is this?" And nobody answers. So they move it. So now you know what happens. 5 minutes later, guy shows up and hey, who moved my shirt? Oh, I did. Oh man, listen, I had $10 in there, man. Now it's gone. You owe me something, man. At least give me 5. You know what I mean? And then everybody goes, "Man, you shouldn't have moved the man's shirt."
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of crap. Back in the days, there were guys that actually that's how they made their living. They actually made their living by some stupid guy touching the shirt. Some stupid guy touching the shirt.
A lot of mind games in the penitentiary,
Oh,
man.
yeah, man.
I
There's
swear to God, they will trick you out your damn shoes.
Oh, sure. Just like the movie, you better eat that cornbread.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want it, you better eat it.
You better eat that shit, man.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time, they got the, I know it's probably different when you first went in there, but they had the group called the Unforgiven. Was there ever a time where, any white organization tried to adopt you into their fold?
Yeah, and they come with the book. They got some Xerox copied book, and they say,
Stop it, man.
got
They
a Xerox
do.
copybook.
Who? The Unforgiven?
It wasn't the Unforgiven back then. This was back in, let me see, it was about 1997 when some guys come around and they say, you ever wonder about your heritage, brother? You know what I mean? So
Oh
I look at them and
shit.
I say, brother. I said, well, canteen windows open, brother. What you got to fit? What you feed me or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because I had I'm in prison. I'm wearing a watch. I'm wearing a chain. I'm wearing sunglasses. Because I used to run tickets. I know about parlays and
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
was running a parlay. So you had to have some flash on. Guys had to know you had some money because that's what they were shooting at. Nobody gambles for friendship.
Yeah.
They're gambling out of greed. So I'm like the walking billboard. Come win my money. Come win my
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
So they're trying to recruit me because they see I've got money and they see
Yeah.
I'm, about a little something. I stand up for myself basically, and I make it happen. And so they're trying to recruit me. So I said, man, what are you gonna buy me? If we're brothers, I mean, feed me. You'll give me something to eat. And they're like, brother, it's not like that. I said, well, we ain't brothers. Man, get that shit out of here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I never played on an all-white softball team, and there were some white guys that were upset about that. I never played on an all-white football team or anything because, look, man, for me, racism is a product of fear and stupidity.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you draw a line and say, I don't like, and here's the crazy part, most of these Unforgiven guys, they run around, and when they're with their friends, everything out their mouth is something foul, something ugly, and then they end up getting a black roommate, and they say, man,
Change it up on them, huh?
man, that guy's pretty good. He's pretty straight. You know what I mean? So the only good black people is the ones that are in your room. Everyone else is no good. Like I say, it's a product of fear and stupidity. For me, I look at it like there's a breed of guys. It doesn't matter what color he is. It's about who he is and what he is. Some of my best friends, some of my true life brothers, you know what I'm saying? Dudes who live the way I live, who I could walk around the corner and see them in a life or death struggle with somebody and know that they were in the right, are as black as a boot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And there's some dudes, and this is no knock on any race, there are some guys just as white as a sheet that are slimy motherfucking pieces of crap. Sorry, I know I ain't supposed to cuss on YouTube.
Oh, no, you good.
And when you walk around the corner and you see them in a life or death struggle, you don't know, well, did they steal something? What did they do? What did they do to be in this situation, Mm-hmm. And the truth is, if you're not sure, you just have to stand on the sideline because you can't help somebody who did something wrong. You just can't, because the repercussions are going to be very severe. So when you know somebody, and it doesn't matter, white, Spanish, Chinese, when they're good people, they're good people.
Yeah.
And, for me, like I say, I wish I had my photo album right now from prison. I'd show you my photo album, that you see that I have every part of the world is represented in my friendship.
Yeah.
Every part.
Yeah. And that's good, man. Well, I still do have quite a bit of questions to ask you, man. I think we're going to wrap it up here, though, man, for you can come back on for a part 3, correct?
I can come on.
Endless amounts. That's why
I'll tell you this right now, man. I think you do a great job. I think what you do, you're doing a great thing.
Thank you, man.
And I am always, it's a privilege for me, and it's an honor to be able to have any opportunity to help you do what you do.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
And, got a lot of, I think on the next one, I'm going to take some, because a lot of people have been asking me to ask you some questions. And I usually do that when people are really interested. Mm-hmm. I'll ask you on an episode strictly questions that they want to hear.
That's cool.
If you don't mind. But yeah, go ahead and tell the people, man. I thoroughly enjoyed this one as well as the first one. I'll leave the first one pinned in the comment section and all the stuff for y'all to go follow him as well. Go ahead and tell the people where they can follow you at.
You can follow me. Well, okay, it's like this. I've always played sports, and I'm a fan of the game and of the business. And like I say, I ran tickets, so I look at it like a bookie. So if you follow me on Twitter, I adopted the name Listless Genius a long time ago because when people saw how smart I was, basically, they would say, "Man, you're too smart to be in prison. You know, you shouldn't be here. You're too smart." And okay, like just to, I worked in the office. I worked on a computer, and the officers would see me on the yard teaching the fitness class. You know, doing pull-ups and push-ups and running laps and everything. And that's what they expect. And then when they would come in and see me on the computer, they would be like, "What are you doing on the computer?" I'm joking around. I'd say, "Oh man, I don't know how did I get here. My head hurts. You know, what am I doing in front of this computer?"
Yeah.
And then I would laugh, because they were surprised to see me working on a computer. So they find out that I'm kind of smart. I learn easy. I learn things easy. And so they said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I just didn't have any direction." And that's where the listless part comes in. Listless means lacking direction, you know, ambivalent, and lost, wandering. That's listless, like a ship listing. So that's where I got the name Listless Genius. And I used to use it in games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So on Twitter, I'm the Listless Genius on Twitter. And if you follow me on Twitter, it's going to be a lot of sports stuff.
Yeah.
I do a lot of talk about sports on there. And I have an Instagram that I really haven't used yet. It's the same thing, Listless Genius on Instagram. And my Facebook is really for my friends. So you really wouldn't be able to get on there anyway. It's under my name, but you really wouldn't be able to see anything because it's for friends only.
Yeah.
So if you want to get at me, and the email is listlessgenius@gmail.com. Now I have a website. I started, and this is a funny story. Do I have like 5 minutes? Do I got
Yeah.
5 minutes?
Go ahead, man.
Okay. In prison now, they have they have tablets now, but they used to, before we had the tablets, we had MP3 players. And before that, we really had nothing. And I worked on a computer, and you'd be surprised how many officers would need a letter printed up or something done. You know what I mean? And they'd say, "Well, what can I do for you?" So I used to ask them for Eggo waffles or music. Just let me bring a CD in, let me copy it, put it on the media player and whatever. So naturally, I mean, Eggo waffles are pretty cheap, but I got so much music because they didn't want to go buy an Eggo waffle. So I ended up with a whole lot of music on the computer, on the media player. So at night on the rec yard, I would take the PA that we used to page everybody, like death, report to classification, stuff like that. And I would plug it into the sound card and I would play music on the rec yard for all the guys. And after a couple days,
that's like some damn Shawshank Redemption stuff, man.
Right. So after a couple days, right, guys would come up to the window and they'd be like, "What's up, man? Where's that music coming from? Did your boss man bring you a satellite radio?" So I'm thinking, well, that's kind of funny. And it keeps the attention off the computer. So I started making some dumps, wave files for a radio station called WNTZ. I'm on there, WNTZ concert coming this weekend, and we're going to have some people, be the 10th caller at 1-800-NUTS, stuff like that. NTZ was Nuts Radio. So everywhere I went, that's what ended up happening was NTZ Radio followed me because I would always just do the same thing and have the same thing going on. So I started, when I got out, actually when I was in the county jail, I started a website, ntzmedia.com. And I wanted to have a portal, a forum where, because there's a lot of creative guys in prison. They write, they draw, they do a lot of stuff. And I wanted to have a portal where guys could express themselves and where inmate family members could log in if they had a problem, like a grievance issue or something like that. So I could kind of like move things forward. And when I went to register the company, NTZ Media, somebody already had it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of backed away. There's still content on ntzmedia.com, but I'm not moving that forward anymore because I don't want to have the confusion with whoever really has this company. They haven't said anything to me about it. It's just that, I don't want to cause a problem. So I'm going to be starting a new website. It's going to be listlessgenius.com. And it's going to be the same thing. I'm just going to transfer everything from NTZ Media over. So that's pretty much, and I have Listless Genius TV on Facebook. I mean, not Facebook, excuse me, on YouTube. Where I just post a bunch of stuff, whatever's on my mind. And I just figured out how to use the camera on my laptop. So now I'll be able to post sitting here where instead of I just been posting driving around in my truck where I
Yeah.
got my phone sitting up in the rack and I just, go to talking.
Yeah.
So,
Any kind of advice you like to close out with, man?
well, if I could give anybody any advice, I would say that when I was young, I failed to see the end of things. And I don't want to use being young as an excuse. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of guys that were young that didn't do the dumb things that I did, that did better than I did. And if I could say anything about prison, I would say that even the best day in prison does not equal the worst day out here in the free world. If somebody says to me, how could you describe prison? I would say prison is the ultimate absence of everything that somebody wants. Everybody you want to be with is somewhere else. Everything you want to do is somewhere else. And there is nothing out here that I could ever be involved in. There's nothing out here anybody should ever be involved in where they would say, I would give up my freedom for this. Freedom is a precious thing. And, there's a lot of guys out here. I would say, it's kind of tough, man. Never act like you got nothing to lose. There's always something to lose.
Yeah.
There's always something to lose.